Hello and welcome to an Arirang special. South Korea is hosting the third Summit for Democracy this week to expand its contributions to world peace, freedom, and prosperity as a global pivotal state. On this third and final day of the event, the leaders' plenary session is set to begin at any moment. We'll take you live the opening speech. Now, to give you a bit of background, the Summit for Democracy was initiated by the United States in 2021 to show how its like-minded countries cooperate to address pressing challenges that threaten democracy amid complicated geopolitics. Last year, Korea co-hosted this event along with the U.S., Costa Rica, the Netherlands, and Zambia. It's the first time that this conference is being hosted independently by another country. Korea has been sharing with other countries its experience and this history of how it achieved democracy. President Yoon Suk-yeol will be addressing the opening ceremony, followed by the leaders of Denmark and Kenya, who will be co-chairing the session, as well as the United Nations Secretary General. The opening ceremony will be followed by the first session hosted by Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen.
Honorable global leaders, I welcome all of you to the third Summit for Democracy. At the previous two summits, we examined our response to global crises that threaten democracy. We affirmed our collective commitment to safeguard it. Today, we have come together again to ponder on democracy for future generations in this ever-changing world. In our time, democracy vastly expanded individual freedom and human rights. It served as a foundation for global peace and prosperity. As leaders, we must take good care of this great legacy called democracy and pass it on to future generations. Indeed, it is our duty to renew their faith in democracy. We have gathered here today because the youth are our future, because they are the strongest driving force of democracy. I look forward to a constructive and fruitful discussion today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, President Yoon, for hosting this third Summit for Democracy. This year, over 2 billion people will have the opportunity to vote more than ever before. It's a cause for celebration that so many people will have the possibility to exercise one of the most important democratic acts, to go and vote. But democracy is not only the act of voting in itself. It is, and it has to be, an ongoing conversation. It is in the relation between people that democracy lives. Today, much of this conversation takes place online. On the one hand, this offers huge opportunities. On the other hand, serious risks. This summit shows that we can stand together, that we act on the values that we hold dear. We need to do this, so that democracy always will win. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Yoon Suk-yeol, President of the Republic of Korea. Your Excellency, Mette Frederiksen, Prime Minister of Denmark. Excellencies, heads of state and government, leaders of delegations in attendance, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I commend President Yoon of the Republic of Korea for convening the third Summit for Democracy under the theme, Democracy for Future Generations. This gathering holds particular significance in light of the burgeoning youth in many global South nations, whose future must be protected and secured by its leadership. This summit, therefore, gives us a platform to not only discuss shared values and core principles of democracy, such as rule of law, good governance, and respect for human rights, but also envision a future with stable governance that spurs economic growth as countries strive to recover from effects of polycrisis, including climate change, energy crisis caused by geopolitics, and sovereign debt crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic. In the face of global challenges, leaders must establish actionable policies, emphasizing well-coordinated partnerships, a vibrant civil society, and the adoption of sustainable technologies to address threats like unconstitutional changes, terrorism, health crisis, sovereign debt, and climate change. As a leader in the Global South, I acknowledge that the challenges to democracy are an impediment to our desired socio-economic growth. We are, however, optimistic that driven by the ideals of the Africa we want, we shall succeed. I look forward to fruitful engagements and great deliberations.
Next, we will listen to the remarks of congratulations by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I congratulate the Republic of Korea for organizing this summit, which arrives at a critical moment. This year, more than 50 countries, representing half of the world's population, are going to the polls. But around the globe, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law are under assault. Civic space is shrinking. Dissent is being silenced. Human rights defenders and journalists are being persecuted. Mis and disinformation, especially across social media, are driving wedges between people while amplifying lies and racist and xenophobic hatred. Mistrust is growing, fueled by poverty, unemployment, and rising prices. And authoritarianism is on the march, running roughshod over the elements that make democracies work: free speech, peaceful opposition, accountable institutions, civil liberties, impartial and independent justice systems, and respect for the full spectrum of human rights. Excellencies, growing up in my own country, Portugal, the country was ruled by dictatorship. And that dictatorship oppressed not only the people of Portugal, but people under its colonial rule. But I've also lived to see democracy flourish and to see how human rights and democratic values can lift people and societies alike. The flame of democracy burns brightest when these principles are upheld. The flame grows dimmer when they are denied until countries find themselves in darkness. Our responsibility today is to keep the flame of democracy alive by keeping civic and political space open so all people can make their voices heard in democratic processes, including minorities and the most vulnerable in every society. By advancing sustainable development to fulfill social, cultural and economic rights, by defeating poverty, inequality, hunger and unemployment, and repairing shredded social safety nets. By investing in education, by achieving full gender equality for women and girls, by fighting against the poisons of racism and bigotry, and by strengthening protections for journalists so they can help ensure transparency and hold leaders to account. The summit's theme, Democracy for Future Generations, reminds us of an additional essential responsibility. We must strengthen democratic systems and institutions for and with the world's 1.8 billion young people and for the generations to follow. September Summit of the Future in New York will be a place for partners to come together for solutions to build trust, strengthen cooperation, and safeguard the interests of future generations. We must work together to combat corruption and strengthen accountability. We must build guardrails for artificial intelligence and the digital world, including through the Global Digital Compact, to protect democracy against technology's perils while realizing its promise. And we must place human rights at the center of democratic institutions and systems. Excellencies, democracy is always a work in progress. Let's keep the flame of democracy alive for present and future generations. Thank you.
Next, we will invite the special remarks by President of the United States.
Hello, everyone. It's great to join you virtually today. President Yoon, thank you for for your leadership for hosting the third Summit for Democracy. We're so proud and grateful to hand the reins of the summit over to you. When I became president just over 3 years ago, the defining question of our time was clear. Can the democracies of the world still deliver for our people and stand together to advance progress worldwide? I believed then and I believe now that the answer is yes. Together we've proved it so far. At our first summit, 100 governments made over 750 concrete commitments to advance democracy. At our second summit, we brought more voices to the table, young people, NGOs, and the private sector. Now, for our third summit, we focused on the future, elevating future leaders like young people participating this year, and taking on the issues that will shape the future, like emerging technologies, which can bolster democracy or undermine it. Since our last summit, I brought together America's AI companies, which made voluntary commitments to keep AI systems secure and trustworthy. And I signed an executive order promoting human rights in the design of AI. We've also taken unprecedented action to counter the misuse of commercial spyware. We've imposed sanctions and export controls, including on entities that enable surveillance of Americans, human rights defenders, journalists all around the world. We announced visa restrictions for individuals involved in or financially benefiting from the misuse of this technology. And this week, at this summit, more countries joined the groundbreaking joint statement on commercial spyware. We're expanding a coalition of countries addressing this threat. Looking ahead, my message is simple. Let's keep it up. I asked my entire team to convene a meeting on the margins of this year's United Nations General Assembly to build momentum for the next summit. Let's keep working together to renew our democracies and advance democratic progress worldwide. That includes protecting the free press, fighting corruption, defending free and fair elections, advancing equality, because the strongest democracies are those where everyone contributes and everyone benefits. History has proven again and again, government of the people, by the people, and for the people is still the world's greatest instrument of human progress. So thank you all for protecting that progress and for proving again, democracies do deliver for people, and our citizens can count on us to protect their rights, defend our shared values, and build a democratic future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those inspiring remarks. We will soon begin session 1.
That was the opening speech for the Summit for Democracy, where world leaders addressed ways to promote democratic values and tackle threats together. More news and live coverage coming up at 9 p.m. Korea time. Thank you for watching.